Hi. Since we started this channel 5 years ago, I've had the pleasure of playing a large number of Marshall amps and a large number of different models. Now to give you an overview of these amps, I've created a number of playlists. You can find links to that in the video description, and they can also be found on my channel page here at YouTube. So in this clip I will go through the lines of Marshall amps that I have targeted throughout the years, so you easily can find the specific amp that you're interested in. All right, let's go. The first Marshall amp prototype came in 1962. It was the JCM45, and that one was basically a copy of the Fender 1959 Bassman. I have a bunch of videos of JCM45, JCM50 and JCM45/100 for each of the model years that you can check out. Then in 1967 the JMP amps came, which are the super leads and super basses, 50 watt leads and 50 watt basses, and so on. And these are the amps that I usually play here on the channel, so I have a huge amount of videos describing those and comparing them. These amps existed until 1980, basically. In 1981, the JCM800 took over. In addition to the standard 50 and 100 watters of the 60s and 70s, Marshall also had a couple of other interesting models, like, for instance, the 200 watt major, which was called or nicknamed the Pig in the beginning, and also, for instance, the 20 watt lead and bass head. So far I've spoken about heads. When it comes to combos, the most famous one is the Blues Breaker, which came in a number of versions. For instance, you had the 1962 2x12 combo, and you had the 1961 4x10 combo. They changed over the years. It was a JCM45 amp in it from the beginning, and it became basically a 50 watt lead towards the end in the early 70s. And the grill cloth obviously changed. And I have representatives of all these versions here in these videos. Then you had other cool combos in the 60s and 70s. For instance, the 18 watt Marshall, which is sold today as the 1974X and 1958X. I have the 2x10 version here, which I think is the 1958. Then another really cool amp is the Popular. I have two versions here, one with the basket weave and the Celestian 7442s, and one with the checkerboard and Goodman speakers. And those two sound really different. Then you have other interesting amps like the Artiste, which is a cleaner amp, more Fender-like amp. And later in the 70s, with the JMP Mark II, you had the JMP 2104 and 2103 combos, which was the master volume amps, the combo version of those. And you had the brutal rock and roll baby, the 2150, which was 100 watt through a 112 speaker. And in 1980-81, when JMP was discontinued, it was succeeded by JCM800. And I have a bunch of videos of and comparisons of both the split channel and the standard JCM800 50 and 100 watters. And later in the 80s you had the silver Jubilee series, which was nicknamed JCM800 Custom by some. I have videos of both reissues and the original ones on the channel. And then in the 80s, parallel to JCM800, there was some really great solid-state Marshalls, which can be had pretty cheap nowadays. You had, for instance, the lead 12, the bass 12, the reverb 12, the lead 20, the bass 20. You had the MOSFET 100 reverb. And then you had the hybrid Artist, which had the solid-state preamp. Then in 1990, JCM800 was succeeded by JCM900 with its three models, the Dual Reverb, Mark III, and SLX. I have videos here that compares both heads, combos, and compares the versions to each other and to JCM800 and to JMP and so on. Then in 92, Marshall released the 30th anniversary, which was elaborate and probably very costly to produce amp, which sounded just amazing. I'll play a 112 combo, 100 watter, and a head here on the channel, which you can check out. Then in 1997, the JCM900 line was succeeded by the JCM2000 line, and there the DSL was introduced. And there were a couple of following versions of that one too, also on the channel. And in the 90s, you also had the three versions of the Marshall Valvestate line, which was solid state, but did a great job of emulating tube amp sound. And in the mid to late 90s, you also had the JCM600 line, which was basically the same amps as the JTM30 and 60 amps. Now these amps didn't use the British Celestion speakers. They used Eminence speakers instead, but it sounded very much British and great. And in the 90s, Marshall's entry-level line, the MG amps, was introduced as well. I only have one demo from that line. I think it is a fourth generation MG amp. In 1997, the vintage modern line was introduced. And these are KT66 amps, which does the 60s and 70s guitar tone great. So modern in here means that it's a convenient amp. You get the vintage sound, but with modern functionality. I demo a 100-watt head, the 2466, and a 50-watt combo, the 2266C, here on the channel so far. The JVM line was introduced in 2007, and here we have a JVM 410H 100-watt head, and also the Joe Satriani version, the JVM 410H GS. In 2012, Marshall launched the 50th anniversary amps, which was a limited edition, and these were 1-watters, and each of them recreated a classic historic line, for instance JMP, JCM800, JCM2000, and JVM, and so on. The Code line, which was introduced a couple of years ago, are digital amps that emulates classic tube sound. And another recent line from Marshall is the Origin series, which are affordable amps with the looks of vintage amps. Then I have a bunch of demos targeting the cabinets and the speakers of Marshall amps. You know, the most famous one is, of course, the 4x12s, the slanted and the straight 4x12s, 1960A and 1960B. But then you have a number of other versions, other cabinets like 415, and you have all sorts of odd combinations here, which gives different cool classic sounds. All right, Now I want to know which of the Marshall amps and even amp lines that I yet haven't featured here on the channel would you like to see the most? Because there are lines like MA and JMD1 and the 2000 amps of the early 80s and so on that I haven't played here yet. And there are a bunch of obscure solid state combos and stuff from the 70s that I really would like to play but haven't yet. So let me know, and I try to give priority to the stuff you want to see first. All right, cheers.